Hello, friends. Happy Monday. Today we will be reading Chapter 6 of Cupid Doesn't Flip Hamburgers from the Adventures of the Bailey School Kids series. But before we go ahead and go into our questions and start reading, we are going to say our Kids on Course motto. So you know what to do. Repeat after me. I am smart. I believe in myself. I am a great kid. I have courage. I deserve to learn. Today is going to be awesome. Alrighty, so I have two questions for you today. Now remember, on Saturday, I asked you if you would just make inferences or think about how the book could possibly end. So we won't go over that because no matter what, your answer isn't wrong, and then you can just talk about how the book does end when we get there and whether you were super close to how it ends or maybe if you were a little off, why were you off of why it ended that way. So, our questions for today. Do Eddie's friends believe him when he says Mrs. Rosenblum is Cupid? Do Eddie's friends believe him when he says that Mrs. Rosenblum is Cupid? In question 2, what does Eddie tell his friends not to do in order to stop the love sickness? What does Eddie tell his friends not to do in order to stop the love sickness? Alrighty. Go ahead and get started with Chapter 6 called Button Attack. Don't you guys get it? Eddie yelled. She's taking over our school. Eddie, you have the craziest imagination, Liza told him. Liza, Melody, Eddie, and Howie were all gathered under their favorite oak tree after school. Melody agreed. I've heard people say that love is war. It's the attack of the killer buttons, Eddie interrupted. Everybody who wears one and eats a sugar cookie goes love crazy. That's ridiculous, Liza said. Just because Mrs. Jeepers is wearing a heart button is nothing to get excited about. After all, she wears a green brooch every day. But it's not every day that she acts like a lovesick puppy, Eddie pointed out. Howie leaned against the oak tree. She didn't act like as strange as usual. At recess, she was actually humming a song. It was a love song, Melody said, and during math, she drew hearts on the board. She's never done that before. See, Eddie yelled, I told you something like this was going to happen, but you wouldn't believe me. We have to do something before it's too late. You can see the friends hanging out by their favorite oak tree. Hold on just a minute, Melody said. There's nothing wrong with drawing hearts or humming love songs. The world would probably be a lot better if everyone was a little more loving. Melody is right. Just think what it would be like if everyone loved everyone else, Liza said. Eddie started to say something, but he didn't get the chance. Carrie came up behind him and put her hands over his eyes. Guess who? Carrie said. My worst nightmare, Eddie yelled and pushed Carrie's hands away. Carrie winked and grabbed Eddie's hand. Oh, Eddie, you are so funny. Would you like to walk me home? No, Eddie hollered and pulled away. No, no. Eddie looked at Howie, Liza, and Melody. See? Just look what that cook has done. She's taken two perfectly good enemies and spoiled them. Carrie batted her eyelashes at Eddie. We can never be enemies. I like you too much. As a matter of fact, Ah! Eddie screamed. This has gone too far. I've got to do something. Then he ran out of the playground and didn't stop until he was safe at home. Carrie looked at Melody, Howie, and Liza. He's playing hard to get, Carrie said. I think I'll bake him some sugar cookies. The next morning, Eddie came to school and didn't say a word. He didn't say anything when Howie said hello, and he just put his head down when Carrie offered him a big fat red cookie and gave him a new pink notebook. He didn't even comment when Mrs. Jeepers came in wearing a bright red dress with a white rose in her hair. I saw Principal Davis give her that rose, Liza whispered. I think they're in love. Mrs. Jeepers has probably been lonely since her husband died. Maybe you were right about those buttons and cookies, Howie muttered. Eddie didn't say a word, but he did notice that Mrs. Jeepers was still wearing her heart button. Finally, at lunch, Eddie spoke. Whatever happens, don't eat one of those heart cookies or wear one of those buttons. Liza rolled her eyes. You still don't believe that Cupid nonsense, do you? Just look at Mrs. Rosenblum. She looks perfectly innocent. The four kids looked through the open kitchen door. Mrs. Rosenblum was there in a bright red dress with a white apron and a big white hat. She was busy cooking heart-shaped hamburgers on the grill. Every once in a while, she would toss one of the burgers. And you can see Mrs. Rosenblum tossing the burgers and cooking. The hamburger would swirl through the air, and Mrs. Rosenblum would catch it on a plate. "I've never seen Cupid flipping hamburgers before," Melody said. "Maybe she's the first one," Eddie said. "After all, Cupids have to eat too. That's how they get so fat." "You're crazy," Liza said. "Besides, those cookies that she baked looked good. Just look at those yummy red sprinkles on top." "I have to get one," Liza said. Liza stood to go up to the kitchen, and Melody followed. "I'm going to get one of those cute buttons," Melody added. Eddie shook his head at Howie and took a bite of his heart-shaped hamburger. "Somebody has to cure Bailey's school kids of this love sickness, and it will have to be me." That is all I have for Chapter 6 today. Now, before you go, I'm going to remind you of your questions, and then you guys can have a great week. So, question 1. Do Eddie's friends believe him when he says Mrs. Rosenblum is Cupid? And question 2. What does Eddie tell his friends not to do in order to stop the love sickness? That is all I have for you, friends. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you on Friday. Goodbye, everybody.